Chapter 14. The turnstile at Washington's Metro Central spit Graham's fare card back to him, and he came out onto the hot afternoon carrying his flight bag. The J. Edgar Hoover building looked like a great concrete cage above the heat shimmer on 10th Street. The FBI's move to the new headquarters had been underway when Graham left Washington. He had never worked there. Crawford met him at an escort desk off the underground driveway to augment Graham's hastily issued credentials with his own. Graham looked tired, and he was impatient with the signing in. Crawford wondered how he felt, knowing that the killer was thinking about him. Graham was issued a magnetically encoded tag like the one on Crawford's vest. He plugged it into the gate and passed on into the long white corridors. Crawford carried his flight bag. "I forgot to tell Sarah to send a car for you. Probably quicker this way. Did you get the note back to Lecter all right?" "Yeah," Crawford said. "I just got back. We poured water over the hall floor, faked a broken pipe and electrical short. We had Simmons, he's the assistant SAC at Baltimore now. We had him mopping when Lecter was brought back to his cell. Simmons thinks he bought it. I kept wondering on the plane if Lecter wrote it himself. It bothered me too, until I looked at it. Bite mark on paper matches the ones on the women. Also, it's a ballpoint, which Lecter doesn't have. The person who wrote it had read the Tatler, and Lecter hasn't had the Tatler. Rankin and Willingham tossed the cell. Beautiful job, but they didn't find diddly. They took Polaroids first to get everything back just alright. Then the cleaning man went in and did what he always does. So what do you think? As far as physical evidence toward an ID, the note is pretty much direct," Crawford said. "Some way we've got to make the contact work for us, but damn if I know how it yet. We'll get the rest of the lab results in a few minutes. You've got the mail and phone covered at the hospital?" "Standing trace and tape order for any time Lecter's on the phone. He made a call Saturday afternoon. He once told Chilton he was calling his lawyer. It's damn Watts line, and I can't be sure." "What did his lawyer say?" "Nothing, but at least line to a hospital switchboard for Lecter's convenience in the future, so that won't get by us again. We'll fiddle with his mail both ways, starting next delivery. No problem with warrants, thank God." Crawford bellied up to a door and stuck the tag on his vest into the lock slot. "A new office, come on in. Decorator has some paint left over from Battleship he was doing. Here's a note. His print is exactly the size." Graham read it twice. Seeing the spidery lines spell his name started a high tone ringing in his head. "The library confirms that Tatler is the only paper that carried a story about Lecter and you," Crawford said, fixing himself an Alka-Seltzer. "Want one of these? Good for you. It was published Monday night a week ago. This is on stands Tuesday nationwide. Not in all areas until Wednesday. Alaska and Maine in places. Tooth Fairy got one. Couldn't have had it done before Tuesday." He reads it, writes to Lecter. Rankin and Willingham are still sifting the hospital trash for the envelope. Bad job. They don't separate the papers from the diapers at Chesapeake. Alright, Lecter gets a note from the Tooth Fairy no sooner than Wednesday. He tears out the part about how to reply and scratches over and pokes out one earlier reference. I don't know why he didn't tear that one out too. It was in the middle of a paragraph full of compliments, Graham said. He couldn't stand to ruin them. That's why he didn't throw the whole thing away. He rubbed his temples with his knuckles. "Bowman thinks Lecter will use the Tatler to answer the Tooth Fairy. He says that's probably the setup. You think he'd answer on this thing?" "Sure, he's a great correspondent. Pen pals all over. They're using the Tatler. Lecter could barely have time to get his answer on the line, and they'll print it tonight. Even he sent it special delivery to the paper the same day he got the Tooth Fairy's note. Chester from Chicago's office is down at the Tatler checking the ads. The printers are putting the paper together right now." "Please, God, don't stir the Tatler up," Graham said. "The shop foreman thinks Chester is a realtor trying to get a jump on the ads. He's selling them the proof sheets under the table, one by one as they come off. We're getting everything, all the classifieds, just to blow up some smoke. Alright, say we find out how Lecter was to answer, and we can duplicate the method. Then we can fake a message to the Tooth Fairy. But what do we say? How do we use it?" "The obvious thing is to try and get him to come to a mail drop," Graham said. "Bait him with something he'd like to see. Important evidence that Lecter knows about from talking to me. Some mistake he made that we're waiting for him to repeat." "He'd be an idiot to go for it." "I know. Want to hear the best bait would be? Not sure I do. Lecter would be the best bait, Graham said. Set up how? It would be hell to do, I know that. We'd take Lecter to a federal custody. Chilton would never sit still for this at Chesapeake, and we'd stash him in a maximum security at a VA psychiatric hospital. We'd fake an escape. Jesus. We send the Tooth Fairy a message, and the next week's Tattler, after the big escape, it'd be Lecter asking for him for a rendezvous. My gosh, would anybody want to meet Lecter? I mean, even the Tooth Fairy. To kill him, Jack. Graham got up. There was no window to look out of as he talked. He stood in front of the 10 Most Wanted, Crawford's only wall decoration. See, the Tooth Fairy could absorb him that way, engulf him, become more than he is. You sound pretty sure. I'm not sure. Who's sure? What he said in the note was, I have some things I'd love to show you, someday perhaps if circumstances permit. Maybe it was a serious invitation. I don't think he was just being polite. Wonder what he's got to show. The victims were intact, nothing missing but a little skin and hair, and that was probably... How did Bloom put it? Ingested, Graham said. God knows what he's got. Tremont? Remember Tremont's costumes in Spoken? Well, he was strapped to a stretcher he was pointing with his chin, still trying to show them to the Spoken PD. I'm not sure Lecter could draw the Tooth Fairy, Jack. I say it's the best shot. We have a goddamn stampede. People thought Lecter was out. Papers all over us screaming. Best shot maybe, but we'll save it for last. He probably wouldn't come near a mail drop, but he might be curious enough to look at a mail drop to see if Lecter had sold him. If he could do it from a distance, we could pick a drop that could be watched from only a few places a long way off and stake out the observation points. It sounded weak to Graham even as he said it. Secret Service has a setup they've never used. They'll let us have it, but if we don't put an ad in today, we'll have to wait until Monday before the next issue comes out. Press roll at 5 our time. I'd give Chicago another hour and 15 minutes to come up with Lecter's ad. If there is one. What about Lecter's ad order? The letter he had sent to the Tattler ordering the ad. He could get that quicker. Chicago put out some general feelers at the shop foreman, Crawford said. The mail stays in the classified advertising manager's office. They sell the names and return their addresses to mailing lists. Outfits that sell products for lonely people, love charms, rooster pills, squawk dealers. Meet beautiful Asian girls, personality courses, that sort of stuff. We might appeal to the ad manager's citizenship and all and get a look, request him to be quiet, but I don't want to chance it and risk the Tattler slobbering all over us. I'd make a warrant to go in there and boggart the mail. I'm thinking about it. If Chicago turns up nothing, we could put an ad in anyway. If we're wrong about the Tattler, we wouldn't lose anything, Graham said. If we're right about the Tattler as the medium, and we make up a reply based on what we have in this note and screw it up, it doesn't look right to him, or down the tubes. I didn't ask you about Birmingham. Anything? Birmingham's shut down and over with. The Jacoby house has been painted and redecorated. It's on the market. Your stuff is in storage waiting for probate. I went through the crates. The people I talked to didn't know the Jacobys very well. One thing they always mentioned was how affectionate the Jacobys were to each other. Always patting. Nothing left of them now but 5 pallet loads of stuff in a warehouse. I wish I had. Quit wishing. You're on it now. What about the mark on the tree? Hit the nail on the head. Means nothing to me, Crawford said. Red Dragon either. Beverly knows Mahjong. She's sharp and she can't see it. We know from his hair he's not Chinese. He cut the limb with a bolt cutter. I don't see. Crawford's telephone rang. He spoke into it briefly. Lab's ready on the note, Will. Let's go up to Zeller's office. It's bigger and not so gray. Lloyd Bowman, dry as a document in spite of the heat, caught up with them in the corridor. He was flapping damp photographs in each hand and held a sheaf of datafax sheets under his arm. Jack, I have to be in court in 4415, he said, as he flapped ahead. It's that paper hanger Nilton Eskew and his sweetheart Nan. He could draw a treasury note freehand. They've been driving me crazy for 2 years making their own traveler's checks on the color of Xerox. Won't let me home without them. Will I make it in time, or should I call the prosecutor? You'll make it, Crawford said. Here we are. Beverly Katz smiled at Graham from the couch in Zeller's office, making up for the scowl of Price beside her. Scientific Analysis Section Chief Brian Zeller was young for his job, but already his hair was thinning and he wore bifocals. On the shelf behind Zeller's desk, Graham saw H.G. Wall's Forensic Science Test, Tetschke's Great Forensic Medicine in 3 volumes, and an antique edition of Hopkins' the wreck of the Deutschland. "Bullied me once at GWU, I think," he said. "You know everybody?" "Fine." Crawford leaned against the corner of Zeller's desk, his arms folded. "Anybody got a blockbuster? Okay, does anybody know you found indicate the note did not come from the Tooth Fairy?" "No," Bowman said. "I talked to Chicago a few minutes ago, just give him some numerals I picked up from an impression on the back of the note. 666. I'll show you when we get to it. Chicago's over 200 personal ads so far." He handed Graham a sheaf of Datafax copies. "I read them, and they're all unusual stuff. Marriage offers, appeals to runaways. I'm not sure I'd be recognize the ad if it's here." Crawford shook his head. "I don't know either. Let's break down the physical. Now, Jimmy Price did everything we could do, and there's no print. What about you, Bev?" "I got one whisker. Scale count and core size match samples from Hannibal Lecter. So does color. The color is markedly different from samples taken in Birmingham and Atlanta. 3 blue grains on some dark flecks went to Brian's end." She raised her eyebrows at Brian Zeller. "The grains were commercially and granulated cleaner with chlorine," he said. "Must have come off the cleaning man's hands. There are several very minute particles of dried blood. It's definitely blood, but there's not enough to type." The tears at the end of the pieces wandered off the perforations. Beverly Katz continued. "If we find the roll in somebody's possession and he hasn't torn it out again, we can get a definite match. I recommend using an advisory now, so the arresting officers will be sure to search for the roll." Crawford nodded. "Bowman." "Sharon from my office went over the paper and got samples to match. It's toilet tissue from marine heads and motorhomes. The texture matches brand name Wesker, manufactured in Minneapolis. It has nationwide distribution." Bowman set up his photographs on an easel near the windows. His voice was surprisingly deep for his slight stature, and his bow tie moved slightly when he talked. On the handwriting itself is a right-handed person using his left hand and printing it in a deliberate block pattern. You can see the unsteadiness in their strokes and varying letter sizes. The proportions make me think our man has a touch of uncorrected astigmatism. The inks on both pieces of the note look like the same standard ballpoint blue in natural light, but a slight difference appears on colored filters. He used 2 pens, changing somewhere in the missing section of the note. You can see where the first one began to skip. First pen is not used frequently. See a blob it starts with? Might have been stored point down and uncapped in a pencil jar or canister. Suggests a desk situation. Also, the surface of the paper layout was soft enough to be a blotter. Blotter might retain impressions if you wanted it. I want to add the blotter to Beverly's advisory. Bowman flipped to a photograph of the back of the note. The extreme enlargement paper, it made it look fuzzy. It was grooved with shadowed impressions. He folded the note to write the bottom part, including what was later torn out. This enlargement of the backside. Oblique light reveals a few impressions. You can make out 666 and maybe that's where he had pen trouble. He had to bear down to overwrite it. Then spot until I had this high contrast print. There's no 666 in any ad so far. Sentence structure is orderly and there's no rambling. The voice and folds suggest it was delivered to a standard letter size envelope. These 2 dark places are printing ink smudges. The note was probably folded in some innocuous printed matter on the envelope. "That's about it," Bowman said. "Unless you have questions, Jack, I better go to the courthouse. I'll check in after I testify." "Sink 'em deep," Crawford said. Graham studied the Tatler personal column. Attractive queen-size lady, young 52, seeks Christian Leo non-smoker, 40 to 70. No children, please. Artificial limb welcomed. No phonies. Send photo first letter. Lost in the pain and desperation of the ads, he didn't notice that the others were leaving until Beverly Katz spoke to him. "Sorry, Bev, what'd she say?" He looked at her bright eyes and kindly, well-worn face. "I just said I'm glad to see you back, champ. You're looking good." "Thanks, Beverly." "Saul's going to cooking school. He's still hit or miss, but when the dust settles, come over and let him practice on you. I'll do it." Zeller went away to prowl his laboratory. Only Crawford and Graham were left, looking at the clock. 40 minutes to Tatler press time, Crawford said. "I'm going after the mail. What do you say?" "I think you have to." Crawford passed the word to Chicago on Zeller's telephone. Well, we need to be ready with a substitute ad of Chicago bingos. I'll work on it. I'll set up the drop. Crawford called the Secret Service and talked at some length. Graham was still scribbling when he finished. Okay, mail drop's a beauty, Crawford said at last. With an outside message box on a fire extinguisher service outlet in Annapolis. That's Lecter's territory. Tooth Fairy will see that it's something Lecter could know about. Alphabetical pigeonholes. Service people drive up to it and get assignments in mail. Our boy can check it out from a park across the street. Secret Service swears it looks good. They set it up to catch a counterfeiter, but it turned out they didn't need it. There's an address. What about the message? We have to use 2 messages in the same edition. The first one warns the Tooth Fairy that his enemies are closer than he thinks. Tells him he's made a bad mistake in Atlanta, and if he repeats the mistake, he's doomed. Tells him Lecter has mailed secret information. I showed Lecter about what we're doing, how close we are, the leads we have. It directs the Tooth Fairy to a second message that begins with your signature. The second message begins Avid Fan and contains the address of the mail drop. We have to do it that way. Even in a roundabout language, the warning in the first message is going to excite some casual nuts. If they can't find about the address, they can't come to the drop and screw things up. Good, damn good. Want to wait it in my office? I'd rather be doing something. I need to see Brian Zeller. Go ahead, I could get you in a hurry if I have to. Graham found the section chief in serology. Brian, could you show me a couple of things? Sure, what? The samples you used to type the Tooth Fairy. Zeller looked at Graham through the close-range section of his bifocals. Was there something in the report you didn't understand? No. Well, was something unclear? No. Something incomplete? Zeller mouthed the word as if it had an unpleasant taste. Your report was fine. I couldn't ask for better. I just want to hold the evidence in my hand. Ah, certainly. We could do that. Zeller believed that all fieldmen retained the superstitions of the hunt. He was glad to humor Graham. It's all together down at that end. Graham followed him between the long counters of the apparatus. You reading Tredeschi? Yeah, Zeller said over his shoulder. We don't do any forensic medicine here, as you know, but Tedeschi has a lot of useful things in here. Graham, Will Graham, you wrote the standard monograph on determining time of death by insect activity, didn't you? Or did I have the right Graham? I did it. A pause. You're right. Manton, Norvetta, and the Tedeschi are better on insects. Zeller was surprised to hear his thoughts spoken. Well, it does have more pictures and a table of invasion waves, no offense. Of course not. They're better, I told them so. Zeller gathered vials and slides from a cabinet and a refrigerator and set them on the laboratory counter. If you want to ask me anything, I'll be where you found me. The stage light of this microscope is on the side here. Graham did not want the microscope. He doubted none of Zeller's findings. He didn't know what he wanted. He raised the vial and sliced to the iron and a glassine envelope with 2 blonde hairs found in Birmingham. A second envelope held 3 hairs found in Mrs. Leeds. There were spit and hair and semen on the table in front of Graham, and empty air where you could see the image, a face, something to replace the shapeless dread he carried. A woman's voice came from the speaker in the ceiling. Graham, Will Graham, to Special Agent Crawford's office, on red. He found Sarah in her headset typing, with Crawford looking over her shoulder. Chicago's on that order with 666 in it, Crawford said out of the side of his mouth. They're dictating it to Sarah now. They said part of it looks like code. The lines were climbing out of Sarah's typewriter. Dear Pilgrim, you honor me. That's it, Graham said. Lecter called him a pilgrim when he was talking to me. You're very beautiful. Christ, Crawford said. I offer 100 prayers for your safety. Find help in John 6:22, 8:16, 9:1, Luke 1:7-3:1, Galatians 6:11, 15:2, Acts 3:3, Revelation 18:7, Jonah 6:8. The typing slowed as Sarah read back each pair of numbers to the agent in Chicago. When she had finished, the list of scriptural references covered a quarter of the page. It was signed, Bless You, 666. That's it, Sarah said. Crawford picked up the phone. Okay, Chester, how to go down with the ad manager? No, you did right. A complete clam, right? Stand by at the phone. I'll get back to you. Code, Graham said. Has to be. We got 22 minutes to get the message in if we can break it. Shop foreman needs 10 minutes notice and $300 to shoehorn one in this edition. Bowman's in his office. He got a recess. You'll get him cracking. I'll talk to cryptography in Langley. Sarah, shoot a telex of the ad to CIA cryptography section. Tell him it's coming. Bowman put the message on his desk and aligned it precisely with the corners of his blotter. He polished his rimless spectacles for what seemed to Graham a very long time. Bowman had a reputation for being quick. Even the explosives section forgave him for not being an ex-Marine and granted him that. "We have 20 minutes, Graham said. "I understand. You called Langley?" "Crawford did." Bowman read the message many times, looking at it upside down and sideways, ran down the margins with his finger. He took a Bible from his shelves. For 5 minutes, the only sounds were two men breathing and the crackle of onion skin pages. "No," he said. "We'll make it in time. Or to use what's left for whatever else you could do." Graham showed him an empty hand. Bowman swiveled around to face Graham and took off his glasses. He had a pink spot on each side of his nose. "Do you feel fairly confident the note to Lecter was the only communication he's had from your tooth fairy?" "Right." "Code is something simple then. They only need cover against casual readers. Measuring by the perforations on the note to Lecter, only about 3 inches is missing. That's not much room for instructions. The numbers aren't right for a jailhouse alphabet grid. Tab code. I'm guessing it's a book code." Crawford joined them. "Book code?" "Looks like it. The first numeral, that's 100 prayers, could be a page number. The paired numbers and the scriptural references could be line and letter. But what book?" "Not the Bible," Crawford said. "No, not the Bible. Thought it might be at first. Galatians 6:11 threw me off. You see how large a letter I have written unto you with mine own hand? That's appropriate, but it's coincidence, because it's next Galatians 15:2. Galatians only has 6 chapters. Same with Jonah 8. Jonah has 4 chapters. He wasn't using the Bible. Maybe the book title can be concealed in the clearer part of the Lecter's message," Crawford said. Bowman shook his head. "I don't think so." "Then the Tooth Fairy named the book to use. He specified it in his note to Lecter," Graham said. "It appears so," Bowman said. "What about sweating Lecter? In a mental hospital, I would think drugs. They tried sodium amytal on him 3 years ago, trying to find out where he buried a Princeton student," Graham said. "He gave him a recipe for dip. Besides, if we sweat him, we lose the connection. If the Tooth Fairy picked the book, it's something he knew Lecter would have in his cell." "I know for sure he didn't order one or borrow one from Chilton," Crawford said. "What have the papers carried about that, Jack? About Lecter's books? Thought he has medical books, psychology books, cookbooks. Then it could be one of the standards in those areas. Something so basic the Tooth Fairy knew Lecter would definitely have it," Bowman said. "I need a list of Lecter's books. Do you have one?" "No." Graham stared at his shoes. "I could get Chilton, Rankin and William. When they tossed his cell, they took Polaroids so they get everything back in place." "Would you ask him to meet me with the pictures of the books?" Bowman said, packing his briefcase. "Where?" "Library of Congress." Crawford checked with the CIA cryptography section one last time. The computer at Langley was trying consistent and progressive number-letter substitutions and a staggering variety of alphabet grids. No progress. The cryptographer agreed with Bowman that it was probably a book code. Crawford looked at his watch. "Well, we're left with 3 choices. We've got to decide now. We can pull Lecter's message from the paper and run it nothing. We can substitute our messages in plain language, inviting Tooth Fairy to the mail drop. Or you can let Lecter's ad run as is." "Are you sure we can get Lecter's message out of the Tatler?" "Chester thinks the shop foreman would chisel it for about $500. "I hate to put it in plain language message, Jack. Lecter would probably never hear from him again." "Yeah, but I'm leery of letting Lecter's message run without knowing what it says," Crawford said. "What will Lecter tell him about that he doesn't know already? If he found out we have a partial thumbprint and his prints aren't on file anywhere, he could whittle his thumb and pull his teeth and give us a big gummy laugh in court." "The thumbprint wasn't in the case summary Lecter saw. You better let Lecter's message run. At least it'll encourage the Tooth Fairy to contact him again." "What if it encourages him to do something besides write?" "He'll feel sick for a long time," Graham said. "We have to do it." 15 minutes later, in Chicago, the Tatler's big presses rolled, gathering speed until their thunder raised the dust in the press room. The FBI agent waiting in the smell of the ink and hot newsprint took one of the first ones. The cover lines included "Head Transplant," and Astronomer's Glimpse God. The agent checked to see that Lecter's personal ad was in place and slipped the paper into an express pouch for Washington. You'd see that paper again and remember his thumb smudge on the front page, but it would be years later when he took his children through the special exhibits on a tour of the FBI headquarters. Chapter 15. In the hour before dawn, Crawford woke up from a deep sleep. He saw the room dark, felt his wife's ample bottom comfortably settled against the small of his back. He did not know why he had awakened until the telephone rang a second time. He found it with no fumbling. "Jack, this is Lloyd Bowman. I saw the code. You need to know what it says right now." "Okay, Lloyd." Crawford's feet searched for their slippers. It says, "Graham home, Marathon, Florida. Save herself. Kill 'em all." "God damn it. Gotta go." "I know." Crawford went to his den without stopping for his robe. He called Florida twice, the airport once, then called Graham at his hotel. "Will, Bowman just broke the code. What'd it say?" "I'll tell you in a second. Now listen to me. Everything's okay. I've taken care of it, so stay on the phone when I tell you." "Tell me now." "It's your home address. Lecter gave the bastard your home address." "Wait. Well, Sheriff's Department has 2 cars on the way to Sugarloaf right now. Customs launch from Marathon is taking the ocean side. Tooth Fairy couldn't have done anything in the short time." "Hold on. You can move faster with me helping you. Now listen to this. The deputies aren't going to scare Molly. Sheriff's cars are just closing the road to your house. 2 deputies will move up close enough to watch the house. You can call her when she wakes up. I'll pick you up in half an hour. I won't be here. X-plane that direction doesn't go till 8. It'll be quicker to bring him up here. My brother's house in Chesapeake is available to him. I got a good plan, Will. Wait and hear it. If you don't like it, I'll put you on the plane myself. I need to get some things from the armory. I'll get it soon as I pick you up." Molly and Willie were among the first off the plane at National Airport in Washington. She spotted Graham in the crowd, did not smile, but turned to Willie and said something as they walked swiftly ahead of the stream of tourists returning from Florida. She looked Graham up and down and came to him with a light kiss, her brown fingers a cold on his cheek. Graham felt the boy watching. Willie shook hands from a full arm's length away. Graham made a joke about the weight of Molly's suitcase as they walked to the car. "I'll carry it," Willie said. A brown Chevrolet with Maryland plates moved in behind them as they pulled out of the parking lot. Graham crossed the bridge at Arlington and pointed out the Lincoln and Jefferson memorials and the Washington Monument before heading east toward Chesapeake Bay. 10 miles outside Washington, the brown Chevrolet pulled up beside them in the inside lane. The driver looked across with his hand to his mouth, and a voice from nowhere crackled in the car. "Box Edlard, you're clean as a whistle. Have a nice trip." Graham reached from under the dash for a concealed microphone. "Roger, Bobby. Much obliged." The Chevrolet dropped behind them and its turn signal came on. "Just making sure no press cars or anything were following," Graham said. "I see," Molly said. They stopped in the late afternoon and ate crabs at a roadside restaurant. Billy went to look at the lobster tank. "I hate it, Molly. I'm sorry," Graham said. "Is he after you now?" "We've had no reason to think so. Lecter just suggested it to him, urged him to do it. It's a clammy, sick feeling." "I know it is. You and Willie are safe at Crawford's brother's house. Nobody in the world knows you're there but me and Crawford." "I'd just as soon not talk about Crawford. It's a nice place. You'll see." She took a deep breath, and when she let it out, the anger seemed to go with it, leaving her tired and calm. She gave him a crooked smile. "Hell, I just got mad there for a while. Do we have to put up with any of Crawford's?" "No." He moved the cracker basket to take her hand. "How much does Willie know?" "Plenty. His buddy Tommy's mother has a trash newspaper from the supermarket at their house. Tommy showed it to Willie. Has a lot of stuff about you, apparently pretty distorted. About Hobbs, the place where you were after that, Lecter, everything. It upsets him. I asked him if he wanted to talk about it. He does ask me if I knew it all along. I said yes, that you and I talked about it once, and you told me everything before we got married. I asked him if he wanted me to tell him about it, the way it really was. He said he asked you to your face." "Damn good. Good for him. What was it, the Tattler?" "I don't know. I think so." "Thanks a lot, Freddie." A swell of anger at Freddie Lowndes lifted him from his seat. He washed his face with cold water in the restroom. Sarah was saying goodnight to Crawford in the office when the telephone rang. She put down her purse and umbrella to answer it. "Special Agent Crawford's office." "No, Mr. Graham's not in the office, but let me—" "Wait, I'll be glad to. Yes, he'll be in tomorrow afternoon, but let me... The tone of her voice brought Crawford around his desk. She held the receiver as though it had died in her hand. He asked for Will and said he might call back tomorrow afternoon. I tried to hold him. Who? He said, just tell Graham it's the Pilgrim. That's what Dr. Lecter called the Tooth Fairy, Crawford said. Graham went to the grocery store with Molly and Willie and unpacked. He found canary melons at the market and a ripe crane saw. He parked across the street from the house and sat for a few minutes, still gripping the wheel. He was ashamed that because of him, Molly was rooted out of the house she loved and put among strangers. Crawford had done his best. This was no faceless federal safe house with chair arms bleached by palm sweat. It was a pleasant cottage, freshly whitewashed, and patience blooming around the steps. It was a product of careful hands and a sense of order. The rear yard sloped down to the Chesapeake Bay, and there was a swimming raft. Blue-green television light pulsed behind the curtains. Molly and Willie were watching baseball, Graham knew. Willie's father had been a baseball player, and a good one. He and Molly met on a school bus, married in college. They trooped around the Florida State League while he was in the Cardinals farm system. They took Willie with them and had a terrific time, spam and spirit. He got a tryout with the Cardinals and hit safety on his first 2 games, and he began to have difficulty swallowing. The surgeon tried to get it all, but him anesthetized and ate him up. He died 5 months later, when Willie was 6. Willie still watched baseball whenever he could. Molly watched baseball when she got upset. Graham had no key. He knocked. I'll get it, Willie's voice. Wait, Molly's face between the curtains. All right. Willie opened the door, and his fist, held close to his leg, was a fish billy. Graham's eyes stung at the sight. The boy must have brought it in his suitcase. Molly took the bag from him. Want some coffee? There's gin, but not the kind you like. When she was in the kitchen, Willie asked Graham to come outside. From the back porch, they could see riding lights of boats anchored in the bay. Well, is there any stuff I need to know to see about Mom? You're both safe here, Willie. Remember the car that followed us from the airport, making sure nobody saw where we went? Nobody can find out where you and your mother are. This crazy guy wants to kill you, doesn't he? We don't know that. I just didn't feel easy with him knowing what the house was. You gonna kill him? Graham closed his eyes for a moment. No, it's just my job to find him. They'll put him in a mental hospital so they can treat him and keep him from hurting anybody. Tommy's mother had a little newspaper, Will. It said you killed a guy in Minnesota. You were in a mental hospital. I never knew that. Is it true? Yeah. I started to ask Mom, but I figured I'd ask you. I appreciate your asking me straight out. It wasn't just a mental hospital. They treat everything. The distinction seemed important. I was in the psychiatric wing. It bothers you finding out I was in there, because I'm married to your mom. I told my dad I'd take care of her. I'd do it too. Graham felt he had to tell Willie enough. He didn't want to tell him too much. The lights went out in the kitchen. He could see Molly's dim outline in the screen door, and he felt the weight of her judgment. Dealing with Willie, he was handling her heart. Willie clearly did not know what to ask next. Graham did it for him. The hospital part was after the business with Hobbs. You shot him? Yeah. How'd it happen? To begin with, Garrett Hobbs was insane. He was attacking college girls and he killed them. How? With a knife. Anyway, I found a little curly piece of metal in the clothes on one of the girls he had on. This was the kind of shred a pipe threader makes. Remember when he fixed the shower outside? I was taking a look at a lot of steam fitters, plumbers, and people. It took a long time. Hobbs had left his resignation letter at a construction job I was checking. I saw it and it was peculiar. He wasn't working anywhere. I had to find him at home. I was going up the stairs in Hobbs' apartment house. A uniformed officer was with me. Hobbs must have seen us coming. I was halfway up to his landing when he shoved his wife out the door and she came falling down the stairs dead. Killed her? Yeah. So he asked the officer I was with to call for SWAT to get help. Then I could hear kids in there and some screaming. I wanted to wait, but I couldn't. You went in the apartment. I did. Hobbs had caught this girl from behind and he had a knife. He was cutting her with it. I shot him. Did the girl die? No. She got all right? After a while, yes. She's all right now. Willie digested this silently. Faint music came from an anchored sailboat. Graham could leave things out for Willie, but he couldn't help seeing them again himself. He left out Mrs. Hobbs on the landing, clutching at him, stabbed so many times, seeing she was gone, hearing the screaming from the apartment, prying the slick red fingers off him, cracking his shoulder before the door came in. Hobbs holding his own daughter, busy cutting her neck when he could get to it, her struggling with her chin tucked down, the .38 knocking chunks out of him as it's still cutting and he wouldn't go down. Hobbs sitting on the floor crying and girl rasping, holding her down and seeing Hobbs had gotten through the windpipe, but not the arteries. The daughter looked at him with wide glazed eyes, and her father sitting on the floor crying, "See, see," until he fell over dead. That was where Graham lost faith in his .38s. Willie, the business with Hobbs, it bothered me a lot. I kept it on my mind and I saw it over and over. I got so I couldn't think about much else. I kept thinking there must be some way I could have handled it better. Then I quit feeling anything. I couldn't eat, I stopped talking to anybody. I got really depressed. So a doctor asked me to go into the hospital, and I did. After a while I got some distance from it. The girl that got hurt in Hobbs' apartment came to see me. She was okay and we talked a lot. Finally I put it aside and went back to work. Killing somebody, even if you have to do it, it feels that bad? Lily, it's one of the ugliest things in the world. Say I'm going to the kitchen for a minute. You want something? A Coke? Lily liked to bring Graham things, but he always made it a casual adjunct to something he was going to do anyway. No special trip or anything. Sure, a Coke. Mom ought to come out and look at the lights. Late in the night, Graham and Molly sat in the back porch swing. Night rain fell, and the boat lights cast grainy halos in the mist. The breeze off the bay rained goosebumps on their arms. This could take a while, couldn't it? Molly said. I hope it won't, but it might. Well, Evelyn said she could keep the shop for this week and 4 days next week, but I've got to go back to Marathon, at least for a day or two when my buyers come. I could stay with Evelyn and Sam. I should go to market in Atlanta myself. I need to be ready for September. Does Evelyn know where you are? I just told her Washington. Good. It's hard to have anything, isn't it? Rare to get it, hard to keep it. It's a damn slippery planet. Slick as hell. We'll be back in Sugarloaf, won't we? Yeah, we will. Don't get in a hurry and hang it out too far. You won't do that. No. Are you going back early? He had talked to Crawford half an hour on the phone. A little before lunch. If we're going to Marathon at all, there's something we need to tend to in the morning. Willie can fish. He had to ask you about the other. I know. I don't blame him. Damn that reporter. What's his name? Lowndes. Freddie Lowndes. I think maybe you hate him, and I wish I hadn't brought it up. Let's go to bed. I'll rip her back. Resentment raised a minute blister in Graham. He had justified himself to an 11-year-old. The kid said it was okay that he had been into rubber Amanda. Now he was going to rub his back. Let's go to bed. It's okay with Willie. When you feel strain, keep your mouth shut if you can. If you want to think a while, I'll let you alone, she said. He didn't want to think. He definitely did not. You rub my back and I'll rub your front, he said. Go to it, Buster. Winds aloft carried the thin rain over the bay, and by 9 a.m. the ground steamed. The far targets on the sheriff's department range seemed to flinch in the wavy air. The rangemaster watched through his binoculars until he was sure the man and woman at the far end of the firing line were observing the safety rules. The Justice Department credentials the man showed when he asked to use the range said investigator. That could be anything. The rangemaster did not approve of anyone other than the qualified instructor teaching pistolcraft. Still, he had to admit the Fed he knew what he was doing. They were only using a .22 caliber revolver, but he was teaching the woman combat shooting from the Weaver stance, left foot slightly forward, and two-handed grip on the revolver with isometric tension in the arms. She was firing at the silhouette target 7 yards in front of her. Again and again she brought the weapon up from the outside pocket of her shoulder bag, and went on until the rangemaster was bored with it. The change in the sound brought the rangemaster's glasses up again. They had earmuffs on now, and she was wearing a short, chunky revolver. The rangemaster recognized the pop of light target loads. He could see the pistol extend in her hands, and it interested him. He strolled along the firing line and stood a few yards behind them. He wanted to examine the pistol, but this was not a good time to interrupt. He got a good look at it as she was shucked out the empties and popped in 5 from a speed loader. Odd arm for a Fed. It was a Bulldog 44 Special, short and ugly with its startling big bore. It had been exclusively modified by Magnaport. The barrel was vented near the muzzle to help keep the muzzle recoil down, and the hammer was bobbed and had a good set of fat grips. He suspected it was throated for a speed loader, one hell of a mean pistol, and it was loaded with the Fed head waiting. He wondered how the woman would stand up to it. The ammunition on the stand beside them was an interesting progression. First, there was a box of lightly loaded wad cutters, then came regular service hardball. At last was something the Rangemaster had read much about but rarely seen. A row of Glasser safety slugs. The tips looked like pencil erasers. Behind each tip was a copper jack containing number 12 shot suspended in a liquid Teflon. The light projectile was designed to fly at tremendous velocity, smashing into the target and released a shot. To meet the results was devastating. The Rangemaster even recalled the figures. 90 Glassers had been fired at men so far. All 90 were instant one-shot stops. In 89 of the cases, immediate death resulted. One man survived, surprising the doctors. The Glasser round had a safety advantage too. No ricochets. It would not go through a wall and kill someone in the next room. The man was very gentle with her and encouraging, but he seemed sad about something. The woman had worked up to a full service loads now, and the Rangemaster was pleased to see that she handled the recoil very well, both eyes open and no flinch. True, it took her maybe 4 seconds to get the first one off, coming from the bag, but 3 were in the X-ring. Not bad for a beginner. She had some talent. He had been back in the tower for some time when he heard the hellish racket of the Glassers going off. She was pumping all 5. It was not standard Federal practice. The Rangemaster wondered what in God's name they saw in the silhouette that could take 5 Glassers to kill. Graham came to the tower to return the earmuffs, leaving his pupil sitting on a bench, head down, her elbows on her knees. The Rangemaster thought he should be pleased with her, and told him so. She had come a long way in one day. Graham thanked him absently. His expression puzzled the Rangemaster. He looked like a man who had witnessed irrevocable loss. Thank you. That was part 6 of Red Dragon. Thank you for listening, and good night.